Hello, how are you? Hope you're good. Today we're here to talk about my July wrap-up. I've already uploaded my August TBR because I'm doing the nudes, and so if you haven't seen that, I'll link it somewhere here. So that's out of the way already, and I read a few, but I haven't read like a massive amount, so I'm hoping this one's actually gonna be quite short. I know it's possible. So yeah, let's just go ahead and speak about the books that I've read first, then we'll speak about the things that I've watched, which is not a lot at all. So in chronological order, I have quite of a variety of ratings and styles and just a good old variety of things here. The first thing that I finished in the month of July was A Close and Common Orbit by Becky Chamber, who we actually seen last weekend, which is very nice. She was signing books at Yalk and we were there, and obviously don't get a lot of time to interact with her and stuff, but she seemed nice. Funnily enough, we bought the third book there because that one just came out, and I brought my first one with me, so this one now is the only one that's not signed, which is fine. It would have made more sense for me to take this one with me as well, but it's alright. This one is not really continuing with the characters that we fell in love with in the first one, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. However, it is set in the same universe and is also following some minor characters from the first one. And it's basically a coming-of-age story of two people. One is an artificial intelligence who has been basically reinstalled and is illegally transferred into a very convincing biological body, and now has to adapt and pretend to be a biological body instead of an artificial intelligence, and that has a lot of different things that is quite difficult, which you wouldn't really think of, but this book talks about, and it's quite nice to see it from that perspective because it's quite unique. And the other story is about the person who is helping artificial intelligence to find their place, but it's her backstory. So it's Pepper's backstory, and it's very touching. It's about a girl who is basically bred to be a child laborer. She has almost accidentally escaped the factory that she was held in, and then she realizes there is the whole world outside of the walls, and she stumbles across this ship that she basically then tries to live in, fix it, and she is homeschooled by the artificial intelligence that is inside of the ship, and that's the only contact that she has while living there, and it's insane. It's very touching. It's heartbreaking. It's very interesting. I would definitely recommend. It sounds like there's a lot of sci-fi things going on. This is a sci-fi, but I feel like even if you're new to sci-fi, this is quite a gentle one to begin with. You do not have to read The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet to read this one. I don't know actually if I ran this through Copile. I just realized. Oh no, I did, I think. And this one got a solid 4 out of 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Anything that Becky Chambers comes out with, I probably will read in the future. I already bought the third one. I'm very looking forward to it. Then I read volume 16 of Attack on Titan. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It was okay. It was pretty much a standard. It's volume 16. I've talked about Attack on Titan quite a bit in the last video, so I think I'm not gonna repeat myself, but if you wanna hear a little bit more, it's over there. I go into quite a bit of detail, but without spoilers, just what the thing is about. I watched the first. Then I read another comic, and this one's called Giant Days, so I read the volume 1, which I think is 5 issues inside of it, as per usual. Giant Days is about a group of friends that come together, or I think they maybe meet there in a university dorm, and it's all about basically moving and being in the university. I don't actually remember what it's called. It's just literally, it's very relaxing. I found it to be a very relaxing read. It's quite fun. I think it's a very good one to just pass your time with if you want to relax. It's basically almost like a, what you call that category? It was like Friends and How I Met Your Mother, that type of thing, but like with the girls in universities, that kind of thing, I think. I really enjoyed it. I don't think it blew my mind, but it was definitely 3 out of 5. I just thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah, there's not much to say about that one. Okay, next up, I read the second book in the Mistborn trilogy, which is the Will of Ascension. So this one's quite a big one. It's actually close to 800 pages. But Brandon Sanderson writes in a way that doesn't feel like you know, it's a chore to read. I mean, you'd hope everyone would write like that, but I mean, like, you don't really feel that it's all long because it's fairly simplistic to the point type of writing, I think. It's quite easy to read, especially for a high fantasy, in my opinion, which is definitely a good thing. I don't like when people try too hard. It feels very natural, it definitely has charm. It's not just like bland, but it's to the point, to the extent that it's not overcrowding with words that are unnecessary and just flowery. So I really enjoyed that. I had a few things that were quite annoying for me in this book, but as I said, this is the second one in the trilogy. So the whole trilogy basically is surrounded around this prophecy that there's this hero of ages that's supposed to come and save everyone, and like everyone then will live happily ever after, and that the hero of ages is the only person that can take this power, and this hero of ages is supposed to, you know, defend people from this darkness. And I'm talking about the first book mainly now. Everyone pretty much assumed that this person, this ruler who's ruling at the moment, was the person. However, this person is being quite harsh and basically giving all the power to the rich and using the general population as slaves. They're called Ska, and there's this uprising and the midst of this heist in the first book, where our main character was a Mistborn, which means basically that he has all of the abilities from allomantic magic, and usually people only have one. It's basically an avatar of all the benders, but he's not the only one. There's other Mistborns, and they're basically trying to overthrow the ruler. And the second one was following what happened in the first one, so obviously I'm not gonna speak about what it was, but I definitely enjoyed it. I am really falling in love with Brandon Sanderson in general. However, I did have a few issues, quite minor, but the way that he writes about the people using allomancy is something that is just too much. Honestly, I kept saying to people that I feel like if a person used allomancy to fart, it's gonna continue for 2 pages at least, and it's gonna go into such detail that you're gonna puke at the end of it. That is, for the writing style, that is the only thing that I really had an issue with. Every time that an allomancy would be used, we would go into such ridiculous detail. Every fight would take so long that I actually skimmed through some bits at the end of it, and I don't do that, like, ever. But thankfully there's not too much of that in here. There's definitely some, but there's not too much. I think that the bits that we do have seem like more because of how long it takes. Personally, for me, maybe you would enjoy that a lot. I'm not the biggest fan of fight scenes in general, unless they're very atmospheric. I don't really care about each movement of the body type of thing. And don't let me push you away from this series. It's definitely not as bad as I make it sound, but it was a lot. And another bits that I also posted on Instagram, there were a few sentences that seemed like very much written by a man about a girl who is one of the very, very few of women in the series. This was quite a sausage party, but apparently the author has addressed this, and it is addressed in the further books, so I'm not gonna hold that against him at all. But the few characters that we did have, we actually had 2. One of them was quite a main character, but the main character was so insecure and so quite like annoying, and the inner thoughts that he would write for her were quite problematic in my opinion. Not to say that that's not accurate, and that there's plenty of women who are so insecure and they feel like there's some sort of women role that they need to fulfill. However, when this is basically the only female representation that we get in a book, that's why it gets sort of problematic, I think. Not to be a snowflake, it just didn't sit, some of the sentences didn't sit well with me, but other than that, this book was very enjoyable, and just the fact that it makes me think about these things, I don't think it's supposed to be holding something against this book, because as I said, it's becoming one of my favorite series, so it's definitely good and definitely gripping. There are so many side characters that I absolutely love and I actually want like side books on, and it is very atmospheric. And overall, wow, this has become a proper review for this one, but overall I really, really loved it, and I gave it 4 stars. So then I read Low, which is the book in a jar for July and June. We decided to go with a comic. Admittedly, when I put this as one of the 3 options for you guys to choose, and then you chose this one, so you can't blame me. But I didn't know how graphic and sexual it is. If I had to summarize this comic, it's basically about hope and this woman who's gripping to hope and not letting go whatever happens. Her family gets separated at the very beginning of the comic, and then she's trying, and then we fast forward 10 years and she's trying to get the family back. It is very, very sad at points, and it's somewhat inspiring in some bits, and I was quite enjoying it until like the 4th and 5th issues, I think, within this volume. And at that point I was like, you know what, there's some bits that really don't sit well with me, but I'm not gonna go into this too much in here. I don't think I'm gonna just, it's because there's a whole video dedicated to this when I talk about this in the book diaries. But this is definitely just for mature readers though. There are a lot of sexual contents here, and some bits are absolutely beautiful, but the art style sometimes almost feels a little bit lazy. I don't know how to explain it. It's not like it feels like it's incomplete, but like on purpose. It's just the style. I don't necessarily mind it. I minded the implication of hope and how you use it, and I think it ties to religion quite a bit, and it didn't sit well, and the portrayal of women in it is probably my main issue. I don't think I'm being sensitive, because literally every single time a woman is not on her own or is captured, she is in her like underwear and in chains. And I feel like, was this written by a guy? Because it feels like it could be written by a guy with some fantasies. I'm just saying. For me personally, it's probably leaning towards 2 stars. I don't know if I will continue. I don't know if I'm invested enough to continue, but it's interesting, it's different, and the art style is quite beautiful. I'll move on now. And then lastly, we have Godblind. This book, right, we have a whole live stream coming up, or maybe it's happened already, I don't know. It's on 4th of August. I think I possibly would have finished this book if the nudes haven't started. I definitely struggled with it quite a bit. But I am literally at the 50% mark of this book, and I am DNFing it. I will, however, have probably plenty to say still in the live stream. At the time when the nudes started, I was like, do I like this enough to continue and sacrificing my nudes time? And the answer was very, very clear, no. I definitely struggled with this. I started listening to this on audiobook, and the narrated for me was literally like it was narrated with umbrage. I wasted quite a bit of time on that, and then I was like, what am I doing? I literally have no idea what's going on. So then I restarted the book in physical copy. It definitely did understand things much clearer. Overall, I felt like this was very much a Game of Thrones wannabe. This is your like normal medieval setting where every guy just seems to be absolute brute and just wants to like screw every woman, because apparently that's the only thing they're good for. It's definitely a grim dark one, but sometimes I feel like it tried to be so grim and dark that it was really just trying really hard. It didn't come as natural as Game of Thrones managed to feel like. It's just part of the world. Yes, it's dark and yes, it's grim. This one sometimes feel like, oh, you're just literally searching for the words that would be most triggering, but it doesn't seem very fluid. Can I even tell you what this is about? I don't know. It's about this world where there are 2 clashing religions. Well, there's one religion, but there's different gods, and then there's people believing one, and then people are believing that the gods are real, because we see proof of it. And there's like 10 perspectives in this book, and they keep swapping. Good thing about this though, that it is short chapters, and I didn't actually hate this book, but it was a struggle, it was a try hard, and it was, yeah, these people are basically gonna go into war, and there's a lot of like plotting about and stuff. Yeah, I haven't made my mind too much about it. I'm definitely looking forward to the live stream so I can hear other people's thoughts on it and what they thought about it. There are some perspectives that I really enjoyed, and then some I didn't really care about at all. And that's just the thing that you have with multiple point of view. Sometimes you're not gonna be interested in all of them. But as I said, I probably would have finished this if the news haven't started, but I'm quite happy that I'm not putting my time into something that clearly I don't deem worthy of it. I did read 50%, which is like 250 pages or something, so I feel like I could rate it. I don't know if I will. I don't know if I will, but if I should rate this, it's probably gonna be like 2 stars, something like that. Okay, and that concludes what I read during July. I feel like I said this is gonna be so super short, and then I just went into that, didn't I? Okay, well, I've only seen 2 things that I can remember. I don't think, maybe I didn't write it down, but I think I've only seen 2 things. So first one was The Incredibles 2. We went there with Logan and we saw it and it was alright. I mean, there's not much to say. It was fairly similar to the first one. It was maybe just as good. I don't know. It was alright. Like, it was enjoyable. And then literally yesterday, right before bed, I watched The Giver on Netflix. I know there is a book for this, but I just went ahead and watched the movie. And I actually quite enjoyed it. I don't know if The Giver is YA, but the movie felt like YA. It's definitely not a masterpiece, but would I recommend it? I think I would. I actually thought throughout the whole movie that Divergent, is that how it's called, the whole series, was literally a rip-off of this. You know how they say that the Hunger Games are ripping off of the Battle Royale? Well, I think The Giver is 100% Divergent. So if you enjoy Divergent, well, obviously with like some different bits, but it's so similar to me in my mind. So if you enjoy Divergent, you might actually really enjoy The Giver. As I said, we watched it on Netflix, but I know there is a book out as well, and it was much older than Divergent. So just saying. I don't know if any of you guys agree if you watched it as well. So yeah, what was the most exciting thing that you read in July? I think if I had to pick one, ooh, it's a hard one. I probably would go with the Will of Ascension, but I also really enjoyed this one as well. I enjoyed quite a few things. Didn't enjoy quite a few things, which is always interesting because then you have things to compare it. If you're only gonna read 5-star reads, then how are you gonna compare it to the bad times, you know? Anyway, let me know what you've been up to during the month of July. Are you doing the nudes? How are these going? Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay awesome, stay kind, and I'll see you next time. Bye!